Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and today we're going to be trying something a little different. I've got my new Epic gaming rig set up, my new computer, and since my old computer was a shitty $100 Chromebook laptop that had basically a stick of butter for RAM, being able to upgrade to this computer with 8 gigs of RAM and a good processor allows me to use OBS. So this is just my first time trying this, so you guys in the chat let me know if you can hear me and if the video looks okay. But so I'm gonna start off this stream with the trigger warning for abuse, specifically against young children, talking children under the age of 13. And you know, the videos that I make, I like to make videos that are funny, or I try to, you know. I like to make my viewers laugh and make content that people can enjoy, but this stream, it's not going to be very fun, the topics that I'm going to be going over, but I think that it's an important thing to do. And we should also keep in mind that I wouldn't have to be going over this if it wasn't for Kent Hovind, because let's just keep in mind for a second that Chris Jones is somebody who Kent Hovind met when he was in jail, and he was convicted of 6 different counts of lewd conduct with children under the age of 13. Of course, Kent is convinced that this guy was framed, that it was all a conspiracy by the New World Order, just like in his case. But when Chris and Kent got out of jail, Kent insisted on spending time with Chris. He says that he calls Chris one of his good friends, and he claims that Chris did nothing wrong, which is a little bit confusing, because it's like, I'm not sure if Kent thinks that Chris didn't actually have any inappropriate contact with children, or if he did have inappropriate contact, but what he did was okay, it wasn't wrong because it wasn't actually lewd conduct, it was just horseplay. He's used that word, which is the same word that Jerry Sandusky used to describe the stuff that went on in the locker room. Okay, so hey, so my video and audio are good for once from the beginning of a stream. Fucking hallelujah. Okay, so for some reason the comments didn't load because I'm using my phone to check YouTube chat. So who is Chris Jones? Well, Chris Jones is somebody who was considered a sex offender in South Carolina and also in the state of California. Oh my goodness. I just got a notification for a whacking atheist with R and Raw. maybe after this stream, maybe I'll do a different stream for that one if you guys want. So he's considered a sex offender in 2 states, and this site says that he's an offender. His offender type is adult tier 3. Now, a tier 3 sex offender is the most serious classification. These sex offenders are convicted of an offense that is punishable by more than 1 year in prison and is comparable or more severe than one of the following federal crimes or conspiracy to attempt aggravated sexual abuse, or abusive sexual contact against a minor under age 13. It's not saying that this person actually did this, it's just saying their crime is comparable or worse than kidnapping a minor, and obviously it occurs after the offender becomes a tier 2 sex offender. So tier 3 is the highest one you can get. A tier 3 sex offender must register for life unless he is a juvenile delinquent, in which case blah blah blah. Okay, so this guy is going to be a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. That's the severity of his crime, that he can never be trusted to be around children. In theory, that's, ideally he would not be around children, but he can never live in a new area without having to notify people. So he's going to be 80 years old and having to tell people. So, okay, so this website, I couldn't find the site that has the actual information from the court case, but this website, legal.com, has the information from when Chris Jones tried to appeal his case, and it has all of the information about his charges. Chris Jones, he said that because he worked at the Bohemian Grove, which is a place that I think it's some type of restaurant or like a casino. According to Kent Hovind, it's where the people from the New World Order plan out their plans, I guess. And Chris Jones was working there and started filming people and stuff. And Alex Jones has even reported on this place. And according to him and Kent, Chris Jones was framed for being a sex offender because he did this, even though one of the charges came before he ever worked at the Bohemian Grove. So, let's see. Defendant Christopher Jones challenges his convictions for committing lewd acts on children under the age of 14 and battery. We affirm defendant's contentions are numerous but meritless. The charges were properly joined because they are connected crimes of the same class. The lewd act convictions are sufficiently supported by victim testimony. Okay, this is testimony from the children. Not on the stand, but to police and to court officials. That defendant orchestrated a strip poker game with 9, 11, and 12-year-old boys. Expert testimony of child sexual assault accommodation syndrome and victim photographs were permissibly admitted. Evidence of the victim's prior sexual activity was excluded. The court properly instructed the jury on adoptive admissions and constructive touching. It properly declined to instruct the jury on accomplice testimony, yada yada yada. Yeah, it's just saying that all of his claims were bullshit. He wasn't prejudiced. He tried, just like Kent Hovind, he tried to desperately find any excuse to appeal his case. So he just brought a bunch of bullshit forward to the court. But the interesting thing is, he didn't mention the Bohemian Grove anywhere in his appeal. And just a reminder, Chris Jones is a good friend of Kent Hovind. Chris Jones is somebody that Kent met in jail. And I'm about to read him. He was convicted on 6 different counts with multiple different children of child molestation, children under the age of 13, and even as young as 9. So that's who Chris Jones is. I'm just going to look at the chat real quick. Okay. So this is where it's going to get rough, guys. So buckle up, I guess. The charges against defendant arise from allegations involving different children over several years. These allegations are presented here in rough chronological order, not in the numerical order of the counts. Defendant was convicted of offenses arising from some incidents, but acquitted of offenses arising from others. So he was convicted of 6 counts, but there are actually more than 6 allegations. So when it has an abbreviation here, like JB, that's the name of a kid. Obviously, they just don't put his actual name. And when it says defendant, that means Chris Jones. Yeah, if you guys find this topic to be not something you're interested in listening to, I don't have any problem with you guys watching something else. That's fine. So, JB defendant taught Sunday school at a Yorba Linda church. He befriended the family of two of his Sunday school students, JB age 7 and ZB age 6. After church one day in 2001, defendant drove the two boys to a restaurant in the park where JB got mud on his clothes. Defendant took the boys to their house so JB could change his clothes. Defendant and the boys went to JB's room and JB got undressed. While JB was naked, defendant put him over his lap and hit him on the buttocks. Okay, so that's weird. AL and TS. Defendant befriended AL, age 10, and TS, age 11, who were staying with his neighbors during the summer of 2003. The two boys and some friends visited defendant to watch boxing. Defendant had the boys bet on each round of the fight, with the losers required to run around in their underwear. Two of the friends stripped down to their underwear. AL started to pull down his pants but stopped halfway because it felt kind of weird. Defendant would take AL for rides in the limousine he drove for a living. One time, defendant told AL to pull down his pants. AL pulled down his pants and underwear down to the knees, exposing his penis. Defendant looked down at AL's waist area and placed his hand on AL's thigh. During another limousine ride, defendant played Truth or Dare with AL and TS. Defendant dared AL to show him his underwear, which AL did. And yeah, it's more than weird. And this is the troubling thing about Kent, because Chris Jones is somebody who I don't know if he still does it, but he drove a black limousine as his job. He was a limo driver. And like it just said, the limo is one of the scenes where he abused children. And so Chris was I believe living out in California and working as a limo driver. And so Kent Hovind, he went and preached out in a California city, and Chris Jones picked him up from the airport and was shuttling him to and from the church in this black limo. So I'm not saying that I necessarily think there's an implication there, but just the fact that the limousine was the site of one of these events makes me uncomfortable, to say the least. Yeah, Mark Stoney, yeah, you're right. Defendant would take AL for rides in his limousine he drove for a living. One time, defendant told, I'll just say Al to pull down his pants. Al pulled down his pants and... Oh, no, okay, I already read this part. Al and TS once ran into a defendant at a county fair where the boys and some friends had watched a hypnotist. Defendant later claimed he could hypnotize the boys. He tried to hypnotize Al into taking off his clothes. Al stripped down until he was naked. Al and some friends visited defendant, so this is a separate incident, finding pornographic magazines in his bedroom. They looked at the magazines while defendant watched. Another time, Al and TS looked at pornographic magazines in defendant's bedroom while he showered. Al and TS also visited defendant at his parents' home, where defendant showed them pornographic videos and pictures of naked women on the computer. Yes, Beach Price, I agree. The only people who should be telling kids to drop their pants are in an appropriate situation, like being at the doctor's office or somebody who's a medical professional or licensed to be around young children. Okay, so Alex M., Anthony M., and E.G., defendant, lived with a friend and his 2 sons. Defendant would get the boys ready for school while their father was at work. Great dad. Great dad, leaving your kids alone with Chris Jones. The friend dated and eventually married a woman who had a son, E.G. One time, defendant showed pornographic pictures on the computer to Alex M., age 11. Another time, defendant woke up Alex M. and asked him, "Would you sleep with me for a couple hours? I'll let you play video games on the computer." Alex M. went to sleep next to defendant in defendant's bed. Defendant also took naked pictures of Anthony M. and E.G., ages 9 and 12. And those pictures were submitted as evidence in the trial. So my point of saying that is just that if there's any doubt in your mind that Chris Jones is guilty, the guy is guilty. They had evidence that is irrefutable, and yet this guy still tried to appeal these charges. It's ridiculous. I'm not sure why Kent is not in prison yet. I'm not sure why Chris Jones did 3 years in jail. 3 years. One day in 2004, defendant drove the 3 boys to his parents' home to play in the pool and watch the movie Gladiator. Defendant told them before they watched the movie they had to play strip poker. Defendant produced a deck of cards and explained the game to the boys. He dealt the cards, told the boys who won or lost each hand, and directed the losers to take off some clothes. The boys did as instructed. Alex M. remembered he and Anthony M. stripped down to their underwear. Anthony remembered only himself getting naked. E.G. remembered the other 2 boys stripped him naked and took off their own shirts. During the game, E.G., who is 12 years old, noticed defendant's dick was getting larger and you could see it through his pants. So that's the end of the convictions, at least. So the procedural history is just talking about how he was charged with a certain amount of counts, and then somehow I guess he was acquitted on like 2 of them. Okay, and then this next part is talking about how Chris Jones' appeal is total bullshit. Yeah, this is, and Kent has, when he's talked about the strip poker incident, he's described it as Chris Jones not doing anything wrong. I'm going to see if I can play my video about Chris Jones for you guys. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and you guys can tell me if the audio plays right. So I'm just gonna do that real quick. Okay.
Yesterday, I think it was, about someone had a YouTube up about me about
oh, how do I turn on dark mode? Hold on. Okay, there we go.
a friend of mine.
So you guys can hear audio?
Chris Jones has been a friend of mine for many, many years. I've known he was railroaded completely by the system. The people who are reporting the story do not know the facts, and the people who think that I am somehow wrong for defending a child molester do not know the fact. He is not a child molester, never has been.
Dinosaur Adventureland is not safe for children. Many other witnesses remember that a child was abducted at DAL. In fact, the secretary was even concerned about it and said that the place needs to have safety protocols before any other children visit DAL. This is not just a one-time event. A child was struck by a rusty nail and had to go to the hospital. A boy was bit by a dog that had not been vaccinated for rabies. Billy, who was once a supporter of Kent Hovind and even came out against Deborah and myself before getting to know who Kent Hovind actually was shocked to hear that Kent Hovind wanted him to get in touch with one of his friends who was a convicted child molester.
It's not the Kent Hovind. They're presenting a Kent Hovind that I don't know. It accumulated to me and my wife actually going down to Dinosaur Adventureland for the weekend. It was after church on Sunday, and we were coming back from a Tractor Supply. He tells me about a fella. This fella played strip poker with two little boys, 10 and 11 years old. For anyone who goes to Dinosaur Adventureland or DAL, everyone has the right to know who might be hanging around that place. And from what I know, Chris Jones has been around that place lately, because please keep in mind that there are little kids, I mean little kids, that live on this property. You know, Department of Family and Children Services need to be called. Anyone who is following Kent at this point needs to look at Kent's friends. You know a man by their friends and who they associate with.
The next morning we show up and he's having the morning meeting and he starts talking about the child being abducted, and he gives all these theories on what happened, and he came to the conclusion that the child faked his own abduction. Now, there's no way a 5-year-old child is going to fake their own abduction and then have all kinds of bruises and scratches all over them. The child was over by the lake. They were going to pick him up on the ATV.
I'm sorry, I just have to point out the Confederate flag in the background. But for reference, this person is named Deborah Henderson, and she was staying at DAL, and she is somebody who used to work as a clerk in a judge's office, so she used to work for a judge. And she went to DAL, and then she saw that Kent Hovind was trying to get the judge who sentenced him in 2006 impeached. So she got pissed off and basically called Kent out, and then Kent kicked her out and told her that she couldn't talk to anybody, she couldn't say goodbye to anybody when she was leaving. And then Theo, who you saw a second ago, Theo, his wife, went and was trying to help her pack and wanted to say goodbye to her because they were friends, and Kent got mad and kicked out Theo and his wife Lene and Deborah. So all three of them got kicked out. And then Deborah, she started making videos after getting kicked out about what happened at DAL and talking about an incident where a child got snatched by somebody in the woods wearing like a ski mask, and the kid got away, but then Kent basically said that the kid faked his own abduction. I don't.
And somebody came from out of the woods, or who knows where, or somebody that was on the property. Nobody knows because the child described a black mask and blue eyes. So when they couldn't.
Also, Kent Hovind and Chris Jones both have blue eyes, just saying.
Find the child, everybody took off in different directions, started chasing this child. And somebody took off running in the woods and he was never caught or something. I don't know exactly what the details are, but the police were notified. They found the child walking like aimlessly out of the woods, and he was all scratched up and had bruises and stuff on him. So obviously a child is not going to fake his own abduction. The next morning we get there and Kent is talking about the incident and telling everybody that he came to the conclusion that the child faked his own abduction. We thought that was very suspicious, that Kent Hovind really didn't care. The family came all the way from Pennsylvania, originally from the Ukraine, and they ended up packing everything that they had and they left the next day. And they were not very happy. Well, I wanted to show you this. This is a testimony from a tiny dragon Nat Stockman. I listened to your video. I am a security expert who was at DAL for a week in September. Not only do I agree with you, but I can validate some of what you say. Kent has no interest in the safety of the people at Dinosaur Adventureland.
This is not the first time this man has been there. He goes there quite regularly. This is a very serious crime. And not only that, but if he did do this, he is more susceptible to offend because most sex offenders reoffend. All right, so like that's just, if somebody has this type of past, regardless of whether it's true or not, you have to maintain the safety of others. Somebody who has been not just alleged, but convicted of hurting little children under 12 years old. And that is the majority of children that is there. They are all under 12 years old that are living at this place. So that's just an issue in of itself. The lack of concern and the respect of the people living there at Dinosaur Adventureland.
I think I can leave it there. But before I end the stream, ask yourself, why would Kent Hovind be friends with this person? Why would any normal person be friends with somebody who's convicted on 6 counts of child molestation? Why would Kent Hovind fight to maintain his friendship with this person? Why would Kent tell people, if you aren't comfortable with Chris Jones being here, then you can leave. He doesn't have to leave. You can leave. Think about that. Kent Hovind is a predator. Chris Jones is a predator. And game recognized game, basically. The two of them are obviously friends for a reason. And while I don't think that Kent is into the same sick shit as Chris Jones is, I think that they have a mutually beneficial relationship. Because if they didn't, there is no reason that Kent would have somebody who is such a public relations nightmare at DAL to call him his good friend and say that the strip poker thing was Chris Jones not doing anything wrong. So just think about that. And Kent Hovind says that 2021 is going to be the start of the rapture or the end times. I think it's going to be the start of that for him. And I think a lot of things are about to start catching up with Kent Hovind. But thank you guys for watching.